Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about 20th Century Girl. 20th Century Girl is a Korean romantic comedy drama set in 1999 and tells the story of Na Bo-ra, a kind-hearted high school student who has a close relationship with her friend Kim Yong-do. Before Yong-do goes to America to receive treatment for a heart condition, Bo-ra agrees to keep tabs on a boy she has a crush on while she's gone. As she keeps an eye on the crush, hyun-jin, she eventually finds herself entwined in her own love story, as she develops a close bond with his friend woon-ho. From there, the movie explores the ups and downs of the relationship, as Bo-ra must learn to become honest and act upon her true feelings. This is one of those movies that surprises you with how good it gets the longer it goes on. It's pretty ordinary at first glance, but over time a beautiful story of the power and pain of first love unfolds, making it one of the most heartwarming and heartbreaking romance movies released this year to date. Na Bo-ra is an excellent protagonist for the story. Her positive disposition, goofy antics, and dedication to helping her friend make her immediately endearing to the audience, especially when the story gets going and she starts to fall in love. She goes through a series of unfortunate events that start off more on the humorous side to help introduce her as a character, and later on in a more dramatic fashion once she's established. This was a great way of developing her character in a natural way. Her arc takes many twists and turns, just as any other person's might in real life, which lends an air of authenticity to how she explores her love story. She has to navigate the roller coaster of her life and come to the realization that she needs to be honest with herself and others if she's going to make any progress in her life. So in a way, it's almost just as much about loving herself as it is about others around her, which is a great message to advocate for. There's a variety of other characters in the movie as well that all have a unique role to play in the story, probably the most notable of whom is Woon-ho. I like how casual and laid back he was, and also how he has this sense of mystery that makes the viewer want to learn more about him. He shakes up the romance in an interesting way. The movie starts off suggesting that Bo-ra's going to fall for Hyun-jin eventually before Woon-ho starts to show up more and connect better with Bo-ra. And again, the way it happens feels organic. He never feels like a typical male romantic lead, but rather a man like any other. In an age where the romance genre has become so tired and played out, it's amazing to finally see a movie's romance like this proceed in such an unconventional manner. Both Bo-ra and Woon-ho experience their highs and lows with each other, but it's much different from how it would be in an average romance flick. They have great chemistry in the same way friends would, but when it comes to their feelings, things become a bit more dicey. One moment they might be head over heels, and then the next, one's love will be much higher than the other's. There's a non-linear flow to how they build their bond, and it's one of the best things about the movie. Some people might take issue with that because of how unfocused it could be, but in my view it plays out like how an actual love story between friends might happen. Love can be messy and unpredictable, and the way it builds between Bo-ra and Woon-ho creates this element of suspense that makes it easy to stay invested in the outcome of their relationship. Anytime they start to get somewhat comfortable, that's when an issue from out of nowhere comes up and unravels things. These things might seem trivial to the average adult watching it, but it makes complete sense because the characters are teenagers who don't have a lot of life experience, so they behave exactly like an average teenager would who's trying to figure out how to sort out their feelings. What helps this movie's romance work so well is the whimsical, almost dreamlike presentation of it. It uses its 20th century setting, as implied in the title, to examine the power of a teenager's first love through a nostalgic lens. And this sense of nostalgia made me recall my own first love I had as a teenager, which helped me connect better to the story. It also shows the different shenanigans teenagers got up to as kids, such as late-night ice cream trips, goofing off at after-school jobs, and drinking parties on school field trips. All of these things add to the excitement that is the characters' youth, and also the fleeting nature of the romance. As the movie progresses, it does become a bit more predictable and less novel in scope, but it's still nice to see, and it's shaken up further with Bo-ra's best friend, Yong-do. She doesn't appear much in the first half of the movie, but once the second half begins, that's when the romance becomes a lot more complicated, in a good way of course. I don't want to spoil what exactly happens between them because it is a significant plot point, but I like seeing how their friendship became at odds with their romantic pursuits, yet it never feels mean-spirited. Both of them love each other deeply and try not to let the men in their lives come between them, and it's rewarding to see them try and navigate the struggle. Even though the movie can be pretty heavy in terms of drama, there's just as much to enjoy with the comedy too. A lot of it comes from the dialogue and banter that Bo-ra has with others, my favorite of which being what she has with her dad. There's something adorable about how old school and yet open-minded he is toward his daughter that makes their interactions a lot of fun. The absurdity surrounding Bo-ra stalking Hyun-jin was hilarious. The length she goes to from enrolling in talent auditions to hunting for his phone number in a phone book almost play out like a Looney Tunes cartoon with how she comes close to her goal and then something happens that foils her progress, which was always fun to see. Probably the most entertaining part of the movie is when Bo-ra sneaks an adult film into school called The Forbidden Love of Dreams so that she can try to get Hyun-jin's phone number. On top of being ridiculous in terms of the misfortune Bo-ra goes through with it, it actually ends up being an important symbol to represent the state of her relationship with Woon-ho, which was interesting to see. The 1990s setting was something that added greatly to my enjoyment of the movie. It doesn't over-exaggerate its visual aesthetics and keeps things more level-headed, such as characters wearing simple clothes, chatting via email, and using pagers instead of cell phones. There is a filter used to emphasize nostalgia, and it's edited well, but in general it's a much more grounded version of the era that remains in keeping with the grounded romance. The only complaint I can think of off the top of my head is that it's a bit odd with how it proceeds with its plot twist about halfway through the movie. I'm glad that it happened at the halfway point so there was enough time to process what happened, but it still threw me for a loop and made it hard to focus on the story for a bit. This being said, the ending for this movie more than made up for it. It completes the story in an emotional gut punch of a conclusion that will weigh heavy on the hearts of anyone who watches it. I'm afraid to talk about it more without spoiling anything, because it really is that satisfying. It ties into the central theme of honesty that's prevalent throughout the story. Bo-ra starts off in the 20th century with only a faint idea of what she wants, and her lack of confidence in this regard transcends into how she carries herself and her relationship with Woon-ho. The way it ties into the 21st century version of Bo-ra is how it wraps everything up so beautifully. Having learned a lot in her life since her youth, Bo-ra is able to transition from her experiences while still learning how important it is to act upon feelings when they come. It's a tough but necessary lesson that every adult has to learn, and I love how the movie balances this idea in both comedic and dramatic fashion. Overall, 20th Century Girl is a fantastic romance story that explores the highs and lows of adolescent love and life, and is one that does so with an admirable degree of maturity and realism. If you like romance movies and you're looking for one that's more grounded in reality while still using some lighthearted comedy here and there, you gotta check out this movie. It is amazing. Any movie that's able to connect to me on a personal level is almost always a win, especially if it does so as well as this one. While it may not be the most mind-blowing romance movie, it still succeeds at telling a simple story in an effective and moving way. And it's inspiring in its message of being honest in the present to move into a brighter future. What did you think about this movie? Were you as impressed with it as I was, or were there some things about it you took issue with? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap up my review of 20th Century Girl. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the German war drama, All Quiet on the Western Front. Bye bye!